realistic is the EU's calls for reliable and secure supplies of rare earth? And do you think they're underestimating somewhat Beijing's willingness to use this quasi-monopoly as a geopolitical tool?
Thank you. I think the rare earth experience was a surprise for Europe. And I get the sense that that was a little bit of unintended consequences. The focus was, of course, on the United States, but Europe relies on rare earth, especially the car industry, and it was in the fire line, so to speak. I think by the time that was realized and articulated, the damage was already done. So I think this agreement on communication, number one, and then potentially having a mechanism is critically important. I think that might be the biggest outcome of this summit, where everybody walked into the summit. I think we had low expectations. Trust was at an all-time low. To have specific areas now where there is an understanding and potentially more communication going forward.
So the impact on the EU when it comes to rare earth bid was an unintended consequence, as you say. But the EU side also needs to somehow come up with a good strategy to reduce its dependence on China eventually, no?
Well, I think when it comes to issues such as rare earth, as you know, it is a highly capital-intensive investment. I think for the foreseeable future, Europe, and by extension, I think the world, will continue to be dependent on it, while, of course, at the same time, there will be efforts to diversify. But the reliance, I think, ultimately will be there. I think what came out of this exercise, when China basically required no licensing, that the whole licensing process within China was extremely low. Actually, the number of people working on these licenses, it's a relatively small number. So part of that, I think, was truly unintended consequences as it relates to Europe.
And obviously the the US and its tariff war on a number of countries is really the shadow looming over this summit that happened. Do you think there is a risk that the EU is sort of squeezed by the two superpowers and they're having to really decide which side to align better with, the US and China, obviously?
It is true that the negotiations of the EU with the United States was sort of like the white elephant in the room. But at the same time, it is managing both sides in a way that maximizes the benefits for Europe on the one hand, and of course for China on the other hand. It is not easy, but I think it will be critical to pursue.
And on that note, with this triangular relationship or rivalry between China, the EU, and the US, is there a particular party that's more vulnerable here, or who might have the upper hand, do you think?
I think each side has, their strength and weaknesses. Of course, we have seen China in rare earth. That, of course, is a big asset to have in negotiations. Europe is a very, very important partner for China. I think for China it is very important, and I think that has been articulated, that it doesn't fall just in the U.S. In the U.S. camp, so to speak. And of course, Europe now is negotiating very hard to ensure it can get the best deal from Donald Trump.